I want to thank everyone for coming out to our March 14th combined work session and board meeting. I want to thank you each and every one for coming out this evening, and we're going to begin with a moment of silence. Okay, the next thing on our agenda this evening is the presentation of colors and the Pledge of Allegiance. Southside High School Navy ROTC will present colors this evening. Southside High School is under the direction of Commander David J. Connor and being led tonight by Chief Dennis Reagan. The cadets are as follows. Cadet Petty Officer Second Class Bray, Cadet Petty Officer Second Class Alford, Cadet Ensign Haas, Cadet Ensign Porter, and Cadet Petty Officer Third Class Jowers. Go ahead. Right face. Pretty good. Go ahead. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Go ahead. Face. Forward. March. Next item on our agenda is the approvals. First is the approval of consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Motion made by Mrs. Hampton. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Massey. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Next on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion concerning the approval of the agenda?
So moved.
Motion made by Mr. Campbell. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Johnson. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Next on our agenda this evening is the appearance before the board. Mr. Ernest Brooks and Annette Graves will present the Do the Right Thing program to us this evening. So that being said, I turn it over to Mr. Brooks and Mrs. Graves.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I've attended many meetings in this beautiful edifice, but I've never attended a meeting from here. But it's truly an honor and a privilege to come before you this evening representing the Jackson Do the Right Thing Challenge. I am City Councilman Ernest Brooks II. I'm the founder and chair of the Do the Right Thing Challenge. The challenge gives students an opportunity to examine the impact of youth violence on their lives in classroom discussions and in written form by communicating what they think should be done to change our culture of violence. By encouraging students to make personal commitments to do something about the problem, the program ultimately seeks to empower them to break the cycles of violence in their homes, schools, and neighborhoods. And my assistant has taken the liberty to give each one of you not only our local book that represents the essays written by the top 10 boys and girls here in the Jackson-Madison County, school system, as well as this book, the national book, that represents not only our 2 ambassadors, but the writings of the other students from over 40 cities throughout our country. I look forward to Dr. Jones's continued support of the program. We had a meeting when he first came on board, and he said, let's go, and we've been moving ever since. We couldn't do this without our wonderful teachers and our principals for allowing us to come into their school systems and present this program. I look forward to working with the board as well as the administration on 2 specific initiatives out of our national Do the Right Thing challenge. These are concerning the issues of cyberbullying and sexting. The statistics we've received that show that amongst many teenagers between the ages of 14 and 18, almost 20% have received either inappropriate photos of themselves or have sent them. So there's a platform through the challenge with best practices and workshops that I look forward to sharing with you to attack this problem that we must all face. I would like to turn it over to our 2 national ambassadors from 2018, Bunsey Govan and Jacarius Conley. They are both sophomores at Madison Academic High School. We will have the young lady first, Bunsey Govan.
Good evening. On January 25th, the Do the Right Thing Challenge kickoff marked the event at JCT, the start of this year's challenge. This challenge is the Youth Violence Prevention Program established by the National Campaign to Stop Violence, which gives middle school students an opportunity to examine the impact of youth violence in our lives. Through classroom discussions and writings, students communicate what they think should be done to reduce violence. The program which was founded and chaired by the Jackson City Councilman Ernest Brooks II, is more relevant today than ever. He said, I look forward to continuing our work to fight against youth violence and equip our students with the tools to say no to violence in our homes, schools, and neighborhoods. In its 13th year in the Jackson-Madison County, over 8,000 students have accepted the challenge and made personal commitments to do something about this problem. Since its inception, it is estimated that over a million students nationwide have participated in this challenge and committed to do something about youth violence. Locally, administrators and teachers have seen the positive impact of programs that has made on students with fewer incidents and less severe acts of violence occurring in their schools. Thank you.
What is happening?
Well, good evening.
Good evening.
There we are. Good evening again.
Good evening.
It is an honor and a blessing to stand before you today. I would like to thank Councilman Ernest Brooks and Ms. Graves for this opportunity to encourage everyone on today. The Do the Right Thing, WRITE Thing Challenge is a phenomenal youth violence prevention program. I wrote an essay about what youth violence is, how it has affected my life, and what I do to change that. Beloved, I encourage you, young people, to participate in this phenomenal program. Along with the trip to Washington, D.C., you will be joined with other national ambassadors who participated and won as well, meeting so many new young people who embark on the same highway, the same mind frame, and the same understanding about the natural world and sometimes the spiritual world as well. On this trip, you'll meet Tennessee's 2 senators, Lamar Alexander and Miss Marsha Blackburn, as well as David Kustoff, our representative. Youth violence is a serious epidemic, even now in 2019. Has anyone here ever been bullied, talked about, mistreated? All of these are examples of bullying. How long before someone else's life is taken by the hands of a bully? On March 24, 2018, students from all around the world stepped out of the classrooms because enough was enough and too much of anything. Mass shootings were happening more frequently than there were days in the week. I was one of the many from Madison who supported this movement for stricter gun control. Countless amounts of lives have been taken because of youth violence. God help us all. I personally can't do many things to resolve youth violence. As the youth pastor, I see many things that remind me of how short life really is. I want to be a mentor, encourager, and teacher to reach the youth in need of counseling before it is too late. The word of the Lord states in Proverbs, the 22nd chapter, verse 6, train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. I would enjoy being there for someone in their time of need. I can encourage our youth to strive for excellence in the midst of trials and tribulations. Furthermore, because of this great program and its tremendous impact on my life, I was moved to write my own book titled, Why Me? By yours truly. In conclusion, beloved, we are one big family. It doesn't matter who says we will never make it. We must strive for greatness and yet achieve glory. As a community, we can man up together and clean up the streets that many have fallen victim to. We can solve the problems that are in many of children's lives. Matthew, the 12th chapter, the 25th verse states, Jesus knew their thoughts, and he said unto them, every kingdom divided against itself will be ruined, and every city or household divided against itself will not stand. In other words, together we stand, and divided we fall. Take the challenge. Thank you, and God bless you.
I want to thank City Councilman Brooks and both students that come out to do the right thing. Do you want to say anything else?
Just very quickly, I think you see the product of what the program is about. We're about supporting our students. These are just two examples of the tireless work that we do. And again, I would just like to thank our students, our parents, and our teachers. That is, to me, the most important relationship that we can have. And again, thank you for having us.
Thank you so much.
And Dr. Jones, thank you for your continued support.
All right, next on our agenda this evening is the scope presentation. Our students, some of our students and two board members and others went to scope at Middle Tennessee State University on March 5th, 2019, along with Nathan Lewis and Jennifer McCauley. And Wayne Arnold also went, and Shannon Stewart went with these students. Holland Parker and Kylan Dalton, students at Jackson-Madison County Early College High. Stephanie Lyons, student at Liberty. Cynthia James and Avery Gibson, students at Madison. Maya Bridgman and Ellie McCauley, students at Northside. Bryce Cagle and Alexa Goff, students at Southside. Before we ask them to come up and present them with their certificate of achievement tonight, I would just offer, I know Shannon Stewart was going to say just a little bit briefly.
Yes, thank you, Chairman Alexander. It was a privilege and an honor that I had to travel to Murfreesboro last Tuesday with these students from our school system. I will say that we met at the central office at 4:45 in the morning, and I don't do that very well, but we were there, we got in the car, we drove to Murfreesboro, and we had an amazing experience. And the best part of it for me was that I got to spend time with these students who are students in our system. It's not every day that a school board member gets to spend one-on-one FaceTime with students. And I will say that these students are top-notch. So to all the people in the community who are saying that there are not good things happening in our schools, they need to meet these students. These students, I mean, we hadn't even gotten out of Madison County, and the girls in the car with me were asking me questions about the policies that were going to be presented that day. And I just told them, I was like, girls, let me finish my coffee first, and then we'll get to the questions. But these students were very thoughtful. They were very knowledgeable, and you could tell that they had done research about the policies that were going to be presented to them that day. And it was kind of neat for Wayne and I to be there to see the things that interested the students and the policies that would be recommended to come before the state legislature and even before bodies like ourselves. So I just want to commend each of the students. Dr. Jones is going to present them with a certificate, and for the teachers and the administrators that are here in the room today and students who are here, if you ever have the opportunity to go to Scope, I recommend going. And I'll be going next year, so Ms. Janet, you can go ahead and put me down to go. I would like to try to leave a little bit later in the morning if we could work that out. But it was a wonderful experience, and so I enjoyed it. And so, Dr. Jones, I'm going to let you pass out these certificates.
All right, our first certificate of achievement goes to Alexa Goff. Alexa Goff. Our second certificate of achievement to Bryce Cagle. Thank you, Bryce. Ellie McCauley.
Ellie was one of the ones that was asking me really hard questions really early in the morning.
Maya Bridgman. I hope I'm saying her first name correctly. She's not. Avery M. Gibson. Cynthia James. Stephanie Lyons.
Stephanie asked me some really hard questions too.
Kylan Dalton.
That's not Colin.
Holland Parker. I heard that maybe some of the students that went to Scope might want to say anything. Would any of you that were here like to say something about your trip?
There was a lot of smart people there, and I kind of feel a little bit slow with them. But it was a lot of smart students across the state, and it was a lot of fun. And I really hope to go next year. And the discussions were very important to me, especially the first one because my group did that one, and it was fun going out my bubble because I'm very quiet at school. And it was a very good, it was a good learning experience for me to be around smart people, around my grade, around my age, my peers. Thank you.
Thank you.
I would just like to say, scope puts you out of your bubble. You know, as soon as you get there, you've already met a bunch of kids from across your district, and then they separate you even more and put you with kids that, you know, aren't even from your area of the state. You learn about a school board, you know, how it works and how a school board meeting was run. You run a mock school board meeting, and it's pretty interesting because a lot of people just, you know, think, okay, they're elected and then move on about your day. But it's really, you know, kind of complicated. Then you get to, like she said, prepare your debates for your policies and stuff like that, and then you select somebody to represent your group and argue your policy.
Hey, Bryce, while he's doing that, will you tell us what policy your group debated?
Mine did the getting rid of or using the Greek system, Greek system for graduating instead of only recognizing the number 1 and number 2, the valedictorian and salutatorian. For certain, you recognize all students that have met certain requirements, you know, at graduation. That was pretty cool because I had never looked at it that way, you know. I didn't even know about that system, I'm going to be honest. So it's pretty cool.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi. First, I want to thank y'all for the amazing opportunity that we got to go and experience. At Scope, we got to learn a lot about how a school board works and about what y'all do on a weekly basis, I guess. And I want to thank y'all for everything that y'all do because I know that it's a very tough job because a lot of the policies that y'all deal with are very personable, but you also have to include many different factors. And I know y'all have to make hard decisions on a daily basis. So I just want to thank y'all so much for the job that y'all are willing to do. So that's pretty much all I have to say, but thank you.
Next on our agenda is public comments. And before we begin this time, there's just something I would like to say is giving some instructions on giving public comments. I know there's a lot of people here who would like to probably make comments tonight, but we only have 30 minutes. So, and each person gets 3 minutes to make their public comment per our policy. So I would just like to say this before we start. I know this is an emotional time, but I ask each person who speaks during the public comments to state your name and then please state your concerns within the 3-minute time period you are allotted. I'm sure that we will have many here tonight, as I've said, that would like to speak to the concerns, so please take this into consideration. I also ask that you would please only address the board and not address any other county officials or city officials during your public comments. This is simply time for the public to address the school board in a respectful manner. Thank you, and please remember this is the only time for public comments. So please do not address any board members during the rest of the board meeting tonight after public comments. Please understand there will be no outbursts permitted during the school board meeting tonight. Thank you for that. So I know there's, as I said, many from Melissa's that might want to have comment, many from Pope. So that being said, I'm going to set my timer, and the first one ready to speak, come and speak. State where state what and then the next person will be from the opposite. If one speaks from Pope, then the next from Melissa's, concerning Melissa's, and back and so forth. Go ahead.
Good evening. My name is Rachel Scott. I spent the last 17 years in education, 9 as a classroom teacher, 1 year as a district coach, and 1 year in central office overseeing Race to the Top initiative and teacher support for what is now referred to as Legacy Shelby County Schools. I then spent 1 year at central office in the merged district overseeing all evaluation training, completion, and grievances for 12,000 teachers and 1,500 administrators. My experience in planning and implementation for a merge of multiple departments for 262 schools sets me apart from many who would seek to plan for short-term and long-term projects effectively. My most recent 5 years in Jackson, I've built a successful professional development department and teacher support system, and outside of work, I've gained lifelong friendships. I believe strongly in Jackson and Jackson-Madison County schools. Both of my children attend Jackson-Madison County schools, and I would not change that for the world. I can honestly say that I currently work for the best superintendent I have had the privilege of working for in all my years in education. And I have never been more heartbroken for this city or for our schools due to the divisiveness of this board. Dr. Jones has brought cohesiveness across department planning like none I've ever seen, and certainly better than JMCSS has had previously. He has set a culture of accountability, maintaining his accessibility and encouraging each of us to do our best and think outside of the box. Don't get me wrong, the pains of change have stung and still sting sometimes. However, the greater vision of Dr. Jones is worth trusting in and following after. I use the words trust and follow specifically because as teachers, administrators, central office, or board member, yes, even you should be trusting the vision and following his lead. Several of you are new to the board, and some of those that are new have joined as though you have it all figured out. As someone whose job it is to ask people to reflect on current practices and adjustments, I plead with you now to reflect on these questions. What harm comes from learning your position before jumping in to make changes? What harm comes from listening and letting the leader of our district do his job for the term he is here? What harm is it to follow his lead, to be accessible and encouraging to those you serve as he has? And what harm comes from celebrating all the great things going on in JMCSS and the community? To answer these is, there is no harm. If you say otherwise, you are showing your inability to serve our district. We watched you undo calendars without all the information and only 20 teachers present protesting. We watched you undo retirement options with no consideration for budget implications and 15 previous teachers present protesting. Look out at the number of people present today. Will you listen as you have before to those who have shown up now that they're here to support Dr. Jones? As someone who's experienced with long-term and short-term planning, I'm asking you not to pass the pre-K without more planning. I'm asking you continue to lay an option for the K-8, and most importantly, I ask you to put aside yourself and trust and follow Dr. Jones' vision for all of us.
Before I speak, I want to say this to Mr. Ernest Brooks. I did not know that you was going to do the right challenge. My name is Sheila Godwin. I'm a candidate for City Council, District 3. My campaign is do the right thing, get out the vote. And by doing the right thing, you will vote Sheila Godwin. Right now, with my thing as doing the right thing, I came to this board to ask every school board official to do the right thing tonight in your vote. First of all, you need to do the right thing in regard to respect for Mr. Merriweather. I'm not calling him out, but he has been in the media, and I think at the same respect that you respect all board members, I'm asking you to do the right thing by respecting each other. As far as the petition is concerned, I came in second. If you don't like Mr. Merriweather, you don't like me, because I'm Sheila Godwin, and I will speak out. So what I'm saying, as far as the signatures are concerned, if you're not a resident of District 6 school board, it really doesn't count. The bottom line is let Mr. Merriweather do his job just like we let all board members do theirs. Next thing, Melissa's. I support Melissa's. But I would like the school board to respect each other on this vote because it's coming up. Next thing is Ashport Road. I've been there. I was at the last meeting, so I can speak and I can talk. Ashport Road. We're in a hurry to vote on the Ashport Road. But I tell you what, be just as much in a hurry to get JCM built. If you're going to want Ashport, step up the plate and make sure we have money for all the schools we say we have support for. Last but not least, I think I've covered it all. I've covered it all in just 3 short minutes. Bottom line, again, let's be respectful. I support Melissa's. I support you. Superintendent, please put your head up. I love you. But the bottom line is we must work together. And again, leave Morris Merriweather alone. He is a good board member. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Lizzie Ballou, and I'm a mom of 2 Pope students. I'm also president of the Pope PTO. Time is urgent for Pope to have a new school building. We have outgrown the school and we are simply out of room. We have classes meeting in the teacher's lounge, cafeteria, and back of the library. Next year, we'll have to add another second grade homeroom, and there's simply no extra classrooms or space to do this. Safety is also a huge concern. It is impossible to adequately secure a 70-year-old building. You also have to think about the safety of the portables on campus in a school lockdown situation or severe weather event. There are also major concerns with the heating and cooling systems in all of our buildings. Our students deserve better than this. In the past weeks, the Pope community has reached out to every board member, asking for specific information on land sites you believe to be a better option than the Ashport land, so we could understand the delay caused at last month's school board meeting. We opened our PTO meeting and invited all school board members. The 4 board members that chose to come did not have answers because they see the need in continuing with the Ashport land purchase. I, along with many other Pope parents and concerned citizens, have made phone calls and sent emails asking for more information on the land that is a better option. We have yet to get an answer with specific information. Since there is not specific answers to these questions, I urge you to extend the option on the Ashport land tonight. Not extending the option will go against the needs of our Pope students, teachers, and community. The Pope PTO created a petition showing support for building a new K-8 Pope school, which was unanimously approved by y'all school board members in October 2008, when y'all adopted Dr. Jones's 10-year plan and purchased the option on the land on Ashport Road. Within 24 hours of our petition being started, we had 500 signatures, and we currently have 1,121 signatures. There were hundreds of comments supporting Dr. Jones and moving forward with his 10-year plan. Here's what one person commented. I support Dr. Jones and his plan for our school system. The school board must focus on what is right and most beneficial to the young people in our community and set aside any outside influences and personal agendas, end quote. The school board promised to build a K-8 Pope school 2 years ago, and you keep delaying the process. Some school board members are concerned with equality. The northwest area of Madison County is the only geographic area that doesn't have a K-8. We are also the most densely populated and the area seeing the most growth. Pope is 60% minority and a Title I school. We are overcrowded and safety is a huge concern. Building this school as soon as possible will bring more tax dollars to our city that will benefit all students. Ms. Black, as our Pope representative, I urge you to please listen to your constituents and vote to move forward with the Ashport land purchase. Mr. Alexander, you have said that you don't like the Ashport land. Sir, this is not about what you like. It is about what is doing best for our students. Please support and move forward with the Ashport land purchase. Anything that keeps pushing away and delaying the building of a new K-8 Pope school does a disservice to our students, teachers, and a community.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Superintendent, my name is Helen Owens, and I'm a retired educator with the Jackson-Madison County School System. And I wish to speak briefly to the planning piece. When a community's leaders have more to do with building jails than they do with building schools, our community is going to stay behind because they are looking backward rather than looking forward. It's also interesting that with our community, much of the population of those jails come from communities where there are no schools or where there are poor schools in terms of the building of those buildings of those schools. And so I ask us to look at looking forward and opening windows of opportunity rather than building bars that hold our young people into the same situation all of the time. In addition, I remember I'm probably the oldest person in this building. And I remember that when unitary status came about, one of the big issues was that the ratio of teachers to students would be the same. At that time, the ratio was 60% white and 40% black. The ratio of teachers to students was that. As the white population left our district and it became more a minority student district, there was not the push to ensure that the ratio of teacher race to student race became the same. And today, that is not the case and nowhere near the case. If it was fair in the beginning that the ratio of teacher and students be the same, it ought to still be fair today unless we have made a policy change that is written where we can read it. I urge you to look at that. The quality of the buildings that are built in my community is different. I looked at Jackson High School, which is still standing after decades and decades and decades. Jackson Junior High still stands, Tigris still stands, but if you walk into my community or you drive through my community, the schools that are built are falling down. And they were built by the same system, I assume, by the same contractors. That's an assumption I must make, but they're falling down. A group of us went to Lincoln School to see if it closes, if we could use it for a center. And it wasn't long as we walked through that we saw it won't do. We can't afford it. It isn't cost effective to even try to do that to make a community center because of the way it was built. Washington Douglas falling down. Schools in our community fall down while others stand. I'm not sure what the rationale is, but it does happen. And then finally, my friends, it's my opinion that we ought to build new schools, but we ought to recognize that communities are not just people who live in houses, but communities are made up by schools, by churches, by stores, and by other things that make a community a community. Let's not take away community from where my people live because we take out the schools, or we build poor schools that are soon falling down. I have an affinity for Merritt JCM because my children went there, but I know if you fix JCM again, it's going to be falling down and again in 5 or 10 years, and we're going to be back begging for money to fix it again. So let's look at what we're doing and ensure, the word was used, equality. Let's be sure that we are doing that. Thank you, members of the school board, for all that you do. Please know that we do appreciate all that you put into this process.
Thank you, Mrs. Owens.
Members of the school board, my name is Rich Smith. I am a parent of 3 Pope Elementary School students, and I'm also a deeply, deeply, deeply concerned citizen of Jackson-Madison County and the strife that has gone on within the school board in the last few months. You have a decision to make tonight, and if you vote not to, and I'm speaking on the approval of the Ashport land property option, you have a decision to make tonight, and if you vote not to approve the land purchase on Ashport Road, then the people in the northwest part of Jackson and Madison County will also vote. However, they will vote with their pocketbooks instead. They will vote with their pocketbooks by, 1, spending their money on sending their children to private schools. And unlike some of you believe, not everyone in the northwest part of the district is privileged. And many of those parents who will choose to send their children to private schools will lose most of their discretionary income due to private school tuition, myself included. Therefore, that will be a big chunk of money that will not be generated into the Jackson and Madison County tax revenue system. They just won't have the money to go to restaurants and shops at their discretion in Jackson like they would have in the past. 2, they will vote with their pocketbooks by further opening the floodgates to Crockett and Gibson counties, as many will continue to sell their homes in Jackson and move to Crockett and Gibson counties, specifically Medina, where it is no secret that it is one of the fastest growing cities in the state per capita for a specific reason, and we all know what that is. This will also cut deeply into the property tax revenue generated in Jackson and Madison County. I have not even mentioned the people who will potentially move to the Jackson area, but who will automatically overlook Jackson and Madison County altogether, and specifically the Northwest Jackson area, as a place to buy a home. Instead, they would choose to buy their homes in Crockett County or Gibson County or Medina because of the lack of a strong, healthy school in our part of the county, since we are the fastest growing and generate the most revenue in the county. I strongly urge you to vote to approve the purchase of this property on Ashport Road for the children of all Madison County schools. I understand and know that each of you were elected by your own specific districts, but each of you also have a responsibility to serve every single child in this entire school district. Therefore, vote to approve the purchase of the Ashport property road for all the children in the Madison County schools, and do not forget or neglect what you were elected to do. Thank you.
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Napoleon Harris, and I am a Pope parent of one, and she's in kindergarten. I would like to talk about the importance of why Pope Elementary needs a new school for grade K through 8. The first point I want to talk about is growth. In the school year of 2014-2015, Pope had 448 children in enrollment. In 2016-2017, there was 568 children. Now in the school year of 2018-2019, Pope has 619 current students, not to mention staff, and that is an increase of 51 more students in enrollment this year. With this many active students, there was no space added. With no space added, that touch bases with safety and security. How can we practice fire drills, tornado drills, hurricane drills, drills of etc. with no space? Our children will be on top of each other, and us as parents, grandparents, friends, family, we would want our children to come home safe. The next thing I want to talk about is the diversity. Pope, as of 2019, has enrollment of children from 11 different countries, and is confirmed by the English language learner, Nancy Labraham, that Pope is the #1 most diverse school in Madison County with enrollment. That is 35% white, 49.11% black, and 15% other. The third thing I want to talk about is special education. Special education cannot be met in a regular classroom. With that being said, learning environment, curriculum, and teaching approaches need to be accepted to support them, which means more space to do so. These reasons listed is why, as Pope educators and students, we need the space. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Ellen Neely, and I'm a Pope parent of 3 great children, ranging from 5th grade all the way down to kindergarten. And I just want to thank you for allowing us to come and speak today. And I know you've heard most of everything we're going to say already before, but I just want to plead with you as school board elected officials to, it's my hope and my prayer that you truly do support Dr. Jones. We've heard it, but I can say that your actions right now do not support that, specifically some of you. And Dr. Jones, I just want to say specifically to you that you are the only man and person in this room that is qualified, knowledgeable, and experienced to do your job, which is why you were elected to do that and not any of us. I know that you are weary and you're tired of fighting. And our biggest fear is that because of divisiveness and you officials not allowing our leader to lead, that we are going to back him in a corner where he, just out of weariness, decides to wave the white flag. That is a detriment to Jackson-Madison County school systems. He is the best thing for this community, not just one school or another, but we have mayors, we have the chamber, we have county commissioners, everyone saying his 10-year plan is successful. Not only that, that's opinion, but we have data, we have reports, numbers show the truth. So I don't understand why we can't let the leader lead. I understand you may have opinions on better land somewhere else. You have not brought that forward. We have nothing to go by, and tomorrow is the deadline on Ashport. So all we're asking is this: even if you don't love that area, that's okay, but continue to make that plan A and put down the money tomorrow so that plan B we can work on, and you can do your due diligence, do your research, but we still have plan A to fall back on. Because Pope, I remember 2 years ago, all of us, Pope community, was at a school board meeting pleading again for a new school over a jail. It's been one thing after another. That school is 73 years old. 73. It leaks. There's no air in the gym. Can you imagine doing PE with hundreds of kids in there and there's no air? Kids are meeting in the lounge, the teacher's lobby. We've already spoke about space. It's not about who deserves what. Every kid in this county deserves the best for their education. This is about what makes sense. We are overgrown. We need a new space. It's 70 years old, and there is a property that makes sense. It makes sense. Maybe you have something better. I'd love to hear about it. But for right now and for tomorrow, for tonight, let's all make a win for Jackson-Madison County. Hold on to this property. And then let's do the research. But we don't have to say no tonight. We all need a win. We do, and we deserve it. Thank you.
I'm Beth Parnell, and my son is Brody Parnell. Ironically, 2 years ago, I was attending a school board meeting, and I remember turning to Dr. Jones, who was attending to solidify his contract, and asked him, "Are you sure you want this mess?" So, irony, gotta love it. But in 2015, my son was enrolled in Whitehall. It was after he was diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder. We were going to be private school parents, and then he received his diagnosis. So let me go ahead and say up front, this was not our choice. It was what he needed. At the time he was diagnosed, Vanderbilt ranked him within 1 to 10 percentile of his age, which means 81% of kids his age ranked higher than what he ranked. So what did we do? We had a group of people that came together to form a plan that was best for Brody, the student. Did we all agree with every aspect? No. But we set a plan and we stuck to it. So what does progress look like? His most recent Ames Web scores for math was Brody had 85% higher growth than students in the national sample who had scores in the average range. So you have a child who started in Jackson-Madison County school system who couldn't form a system, outranking 85% of national average children. He also just received Student of the Month at Pope in February. So I want to thank Ms. Horner, Ms. McGee, and Ms. Kirkbride for what they do, because they are taking children like Brody and continuing on that plan that we made back in 2015. Have there been hiccups? Absolutely. But we don't change just because there's a hiccup. We keep pushing forward for what's best for Brody. I want to implore the elected officials, wanting what's best for your district should not equate hindering progress for other districts. I also want to ask the question to Chairman Alexander. What right does any school board member have to threaten the potential employment of system employees because citizens do not agree with their stance? I want us to pause and really think about that we have come to that. It's okay if we don't agree on every aspect of the plan. But as long as we continue to push forward, we will see progress, just like we have seen with my child Brody. Brody attended Whitehall proudly, which is located in East Jackson and now Pope. And I live in 38301. His dad lives in 38305. That's why he's a Pope student.
My name is Michelle Geisler, and I am an East Elementary teacher, 27 years in the system. I've seen quite a bit over the last 27 years. I would like for our school board and our superintendent to be able to work together. And I also would like to tell Dr. Jones that East Elementary supports him. We've made gains in education and just making sure that we're the same across the board. Teaching what we need to teach. Making sure that our children are making those gains and are able to do outside jobs and things like that. So we do want to just tell Dr. Jones that East Elementary supports you. We want to do the things that you have planned. All right, thank you.
Hello, my name is Janelle Baker, and I've been here 4 years. I moved here from New York City, and it is such a big culture shock to be here. Like, you can cut the tension in this room with a knife. But I just wanted to say I would love it if you guys would bring arts and field trips back to the school. Like, I know you guys are making a big vote tonight, but I would love if y'all can make a budget, because my daughter is now in 6th grade. She used to go on field trips all the time. We moved here, she was in 2nd grade. And it's just, it would be good for the kids to experience more art and more field trips, more hands-on experience, because they are so stressed out. I have never seen an 11-year-old so stressed out at school. She's like, it's so stressful, Mom. I'm like, what's stressful about homework? She's like, it's not homework, it's the kids. That's just, what kids? What's so stressful about it? I mean, they're kids. And I know you guys are fighting with social media as well, because everybody has a phone now, but the kids need to actually put their hands on something. They don't even have textbooks, but they need to put their hands on something, okay? And good luck with y'all vote.
Good evening. My name is Jen C. Spradlin. My son is a freshman at Madison Academic this year, and we live within walking distance to Arlington Elementary School. But since he started kindergarten, I have driven past this school 2 to 4 times a day to head north of I-40 for him to attend private school. The reason why I want to speak tonight is because much has been said of late by the board related to bringing back families who are in private school, recruit people who might otherwise consider private school, or prevent families from moving out of our area. I think it's important to understand these implications of our decisions, not only on this group of people, but for our community as a whole. When we moved to Jackson in 2005, our son was 15 months old, and one of the first things that someone asked us was, well, you're not sending him to public school, are you? And that was just a lovely welcome to Jackson, I'll tell you that much. Because of all of these negative messages, we didn't even bother to investigate the local schools due to the messages we were hearing. But I think it's a really big mistake to assume that people who attend private school can do so without much of an impact to their family's budget. With an enrollment of 19% of children K through 12 in Madison County attending private schools, which is 8% higher than the state average, the income levels in this community certainly are not high enough to bear out the fact that the people going to private school have lots and lots of money. Tuition was the single biggest expense for our family, and I would guess that at the end of the month, our checkbook and those of many other private school parents looked about the same. When you're trying to figure out how you're going to pay for medication, or fix a leak in your roof, or put new tires on your car, it quite honestly makes you angry and resentful that you feel that you have to spend these dollars on a private school education. But it was easy at the time to justify this sacrifice when I could read all the turmoil in the paper over the last 14 years regarding central office and the school board. So the more turmoil, the better I could sleep at night. So people wonder why there hasn't been much support in this community for public education, and this is why. The anger and resentment leads to apathy. But this changed the first time I heard Dr. Jones speak. I remember sitting at one of his forums, and his vision was so compelling. It gave our family hope, and it immediately changed my impression about the future of our school system. And it started to chip away at that resentment and anger and apathy, and I could no longer fully justify all the sacrifices our family was making to send our son to private school. We have been so thrilled with our decision to be at Madison, but we are equally as disappointed with what we thought would be a really engaging and supportive school board. This community has had more support for Dr. Jones than anybody in our entire time here. So I just ask that you please trust his process, give him time, and let us all make sure that we have a community public school system that we can be proud of. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Sherry Franks, and I have 3 boys. My oldest will be going to Madison next year, goes to private school. My middle one goes to Augustine, and my smallest one is a kindergarten student at Pope. I'm here speaking specifically about the building of the new school and the impact on our community and the growth that will lead behind it. Just for those that are not familiar, this school has been there for 70 years.
or more. I think somebody said 72. It's on 8 acres. 8 acres. I think my house is on 5. So that kind of gives you a perspective. It's on Humboldt Road. It's on a 2-lane road in front of it. There are no turns. There's nothing. There's the school. There's no ability to expand. To help accommodate the increase in student population, they have temporary buildings. Temporary buildings. I'm thinking 1, 2 years old? I heard it was 20. 20 years old is a temporary building. That's not temporary. That's a permanent building these kids are in. I would say at this point you need to quit calling it temporary and move on to permanent. This creates safety issues for our kids. As Jackson grows, it's going to get even more crowded. As you heard the statistics of another lady, she told you how much it was growing. Our community voted for it to go K through 8. It's already been voted on. School can't accommodate it. That's 2 more grades. So those kids, where are they? They're somewhere else. They're not at Pope. This is a vote against the votes in our community. Our community voted for those kids to go there. As you've heard from people speaking before in our communities, at this point, this concern is twofold. It's an overcrowding at our school. It's an aging facility. And the board's inability to work with the superintendent on important issues that are for our kids and for the future of this community. That's the key to all of this. First, I'd like to address the actual discussion of the Ashport land. The Ashport land, you've got $10,000 on it right now. That expires tomorrow night at midnight, I think. If that expires, you will not get a second option. It is already sold. I have already talked to the owner of that property. It will be used for something else, and probably housing. So, no one has proved to us that there is an additional piece of land that we can share with our students and our teachers of what the options are. That's 42 acres. Remember I said that they're on 8? Can you imagine what they can do with 42? There's been conversations of a high school and a lot of other things. I think those are great ideas. If they're working on 8, I'm pretty sure we can get something on there in 42. So let's quit worrying about the high school at this point and realize that that's a pretty good sized piece of land.
Mrs. Franks, I'm sorry. I'm up here talking to you.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
You're over your 3 minutes, and we're already over our 30 minutes. I'm sorry but so the rest, and we're going to cap the line at who's in line now, and I'm sorry.
Good evening. My name is Tiffany Taylor, and I'm principal of North Parkway Middle School. I have been in the school system for 19 years, and I've never spoken at a board meeting. 10 years I've been a principal, and I've had 5 superintendents. 5. And when he came, Dr. Jones came, I told him with tears in my eyes. Matter of fact, they were running down my face. And I said, if you don't get hired as superintendent, I'm leaving this school system. I have been the principal at Denmark Elementary, where we were a reward school. We have received several different rewards. I've worked in the State Department. I've done many different things in these 19 years. And to feel like I cannot be a principal, a school leader in the city where I live and my children attend was really bad. In those 10 years of being principal and 5 superintendents, we didn't have a curriculum. Teachers worked themselves to the bone. They weren't treated fairly. It's the truth. Principals weren't either. If you were here, you know about it. We went through a lot. And now we have a curriculum, a strong curriculum. Now our students are reading in chapter books. Now they're having conversations about the text. For the first time since I have been doing this job, I have felt supported and loved and appreciated. I don't understand why we wouldn't support someone who we've chosen to do the job. I don't mean any harm what I'm about to say, but only 2 of you have been in my school. Only 2. And 1 came with a list of questions against Dr. Jones. so unethical and immoral. I didn't answer not one of them. Well, I'm just going to speak the truth because I have this moment. And to come and try to ask me to speak something against my leader, my boss, the one who supports me in the tough school I work in, I get up every morning and go to school because I love the kids, but I also love the one I work for. I do. And not only do I love him and he supports me in every principle and he's fair to every last one of us, there's a whole team behind me that I feel supported. I never felt that. Not at central office. The whole team. There's not one I cannot text or call that won't be there. Every last one of them behind me, I can call and ask questions. Now I think about that. When you don't support the person who's chosen to lead our district, you're not supporting principals. When you don't support principals, you're not supporting teachers. When you don't support teachers, you're not supporting students. And when you don't support students, chose to come tonight to fight for my superintendent like he would fight for me. I heard the bell go off. He is the hope. That's okay. He is the hope that we need. For some reason or another, all of a sudden I got strength that I could do my job and I could support teachers in doing my job. And then we have this diversity, we have this division, we have this foolishness. I'll call it what it is. It has to stop. And we have to do what's right for kids.
My name is Mark Spain. I'm a concerned citizen. Dr. Jones, you were God sent to Jackson, Tennessee. Dr. Jones, you are blessed with wisdom and knowledge to make the right decisions for the better of the schools of Jackson-Madison County Schools. And the Bible says, dwell in unity. School board, you got to back Dr. Jones. He's out for the right. He's out for the best for the students. You look at factory and industry. You think they're going to come to Jackson if y'all can't agree with one another? You've got to come together and dwell in unity. And Dr. Jones, you have a heart like Jesus. You care and have compassion for the students, and you have a beautiful soul, and God sent you here. And school board, you must back your schools. You must back Dr. Jones for the better of Jackson. And he's out there to do the right thing and make the right choices. And please, if I get on my knees, please, please, please back Dr. Jones. He's good. He's good for Jackson. He's good for the community. He's a very nice man. He's always doing the right thing and making the right choices. And please, school board, come to agreement. The Bible says dwell in unity. If you're not agreeing with one another, you think factories going to come to Jackson? They look at that school board. If you agree with one another, factories, industry come to Jackson. And Dr. Jones, you're the right fit for Jackson. God sent you down here for a purpose and a reason. And you're down here doing the right thing for the better of Jackson, and the parents, they love you, the school teachers love you, and you're doing a great job. And school board, please, please back Dr. Jones for the people of Jackson. And God bless you, and thank God for you, Dr. Jones.
So my name is Stephen. And first of all, I'll say I'm not someone to be bullied. Second of all, I'd like to say that I'm a parent here in Jackson-Madison County, and I'm concerned just like the rest of the community here. I'm just here like the rest of the parents here tonight, and would like to know, since the past of Madison County, I guess it's directed to Mr. Jones, are you committed to staying with the school system as superintendent, or have you found something else that you would like to do? It's just a question I'm throwing out there.
Chairman Alexander, Dr. Jones,
distinguished members of the board, thank you for allowing me to step up and speak tonight. My name is Tim Gilmer. I am principal of Thelma Barker Elementary School, and I'm the district athletic director. And I want to start off by thanking each one of you on the board for your service, because you signed up for something with little or no pay or compensation that I know about, and what you signed up for was to stick your neck out and your face out there and be ridiculed for decisions you make and never get thanks for the good things that you do. And every negative thing gets thrown out there, but that's what you signed up for, to be in the public light, and that's part of it. But I want to thank you for that, because not everybody can do that and not everybody can handle that, so thank you. And I don't use the word serve lightly, but you have all stepped up, signed on a dotted line to serve. And my question is, who are you going to serve? If the answer is anything other than the students of Jackson-Madison County, we got a problem. We have a problem. And I love what Mr. Moore says. He says, I'm about serving all students. And I hope you all feel that way. Now, Mr. Alexander, you talk, and I hear most of you saying it. What have we got to do to get people to return, students, families, to return back to Jackson-Madison County school system? Because we know that we lose a lot of kids to private schools. We lose a lot of kids to surrounding counties. And I've been in education over 30 years. About half the time was in private schools, half the time in public schools, rural, urban. I've had my own kids in private schools, my own kids in Jackson-Madison County, and others. Now, I think I'm pretty qualified to speak on what brings people to different schools and different communities. And I'm going to tell you what brings people anywhere, and it's not just in education, it's everywhere. And that's one word, and that one word's hope. It is hope in the future of what's going to take place. And looking at the accomplishments that's happened since Dr. Jones has been here is phenomenal. It's phenomenal, folks. That's hope. That is hope. And Dr. Jones will be the first one to tell you he didn't do this by himself. He assembled a great team here that, as previous people have said, are just incredible. They're known in my building as the dream team when they come in, because they're awesome. They support us, they support us, they support us, and they support us some more. And principals, Dr. Jones said to get this thing turned around, it's going to about kill us. And he wasn't lying, because it's about killing us all. We're working and working and working, and those teachers and those aides and the parents. And like I said, he didn't do it by himself, but what he has done, he's galvanized this community. He's galvanized administrators, he's galvanized parents, he's galvanized teachers, and he's brought us all together to support his plan, and I'm going to ask you to do the same. But again, thank you for your service. We appreciate y'all, and let's please all get together and serve the children. Thank you.
Good evening. Good evening to the board. David Wicker. I am a principal in Jackson-Madison County Schools at West Venus. But more importantly tonight, I come as a father of my sons, Jackson and Mason Wicker, who live out north, and they go to Pope and East Elementary. My wife is also an employee of Jackson-Madison County Schools. And so over the past couple of weeks, I did a lot of prayer and I did a lot of thinking, and this one phrase kept coming back to me, and it was privilege. And so I prayed and prayed, and I said, Lord, lead me to the answer of what that is. What is privilege? And Mr. Meriwether, you got it right. I am extremely privileged because I work for that man right there. I am beyond privileged. I am beyond honored. I am beyond privileged. I am beyond every emotion that I could explain, because in the 4 years that I have been here, I have grown more as a leader than I could have ever imagined growing in Memphis. Ever. That growth for myself leads to growth for our students, leads to growth for our communities. The things that I'm finding out and the things that we're doing and I'm learning. Like you said, from the dream team, from the people who support us every day. Corey Curry, I have to call every day and get his advice. He's just one part of our team. But I call him, and he is my friend. He is my community. He is our heart. He is our soul. He is someone who leads me to help these kids. Dr. Myrickle sitting right here behind me when I have any questions about what's the best way for these kids to get this? What's the best way to help them do this? He gives me the best advice he can. And whenever he needs help with that or he has a question on that, he goes to Dr. Jones. He also has Mr. Kirkbride, who's right over here, who I have been blessed to know for 4 years because I interviewed with him to be his assistant principal before I was even brought onto the system as a principal. And so I lean on him more than almost anyone. And Ryan, I want to say thank you so very much for helping me grow as a person and a leader. To Miss Scott, who I knew as Miss Lebo in Memphis, you got here before I did, and I'm so thankful that you did because it gave me someone to know while I was here. Thank you for all that you do for my teachers, to show them the way, to show them how to lead. There are people that I'm leaving out that are over here behind me, but I can name every one of them. I can name every person that's over here because they are part of a team. They're part of our school community. And all that we're asking for is to do what's best for kids. Because just like Mr. Gilmer said, Dr. Jones said it could kill you. And let me tell you something, being in the emergency room with a blood pressure of 201/100, it will kill you, okay? But I'm all right with dying. I am perfectly okay because I know where I'm going as long as I'm getting there, taking our kids where they need to be.
How you guys doing? My name is Fred Spike. I don't have any kids in school right now. I run the bargain barn right down the road. I have a ministry I've started in Jackson. It's called Press Ministry. Dr. Jones, I personally don't know you, but I really appreciate you because you allowed me to go to some of the schools and speak to the kids. I have a ministry where we go around and we mentor to the kids. But let me tell you guys something. I deal with a lot of politicians. I'm not up here doing this for likes or to get any hoorays or anything from anyone. You know, Dr. Jones, you're doing a fantastic job. I appreciate you for letting me go to the school system. But our main problem is, like, in the school system, I go around and I talk to these kids. You know, I go to a Bible study on Thursdays, and it's predominantly white guys. And you know, I'm not prejudiced or anything. I grew up in California. I didn't grow up in Jackson. I've been there in Jackson a couple years. But the thing about it is I shared with some of these guys in the Bible study group, and it's led by one of my good friends, Gary Taylor. And I was sharing some of the things that we having problems with in the schools. I'm not putting anybody out there on Front Street, but I go to North Parkway Middle School, and that's one of the worst middle schools in Jackson, Tennessee. But you know why it's one of the worst middle schools in Jackson, Tennessee? Because you guys sit up there, you dump all these kids in one school that got problems from Lincoln Court in so many different areas, and you guys just throw them over there, and you expect for them to learn. But they can't learn because I go to the school and I talk to some of these kids, and some of these kids, they want to listen to what I got to say. Because, you know, I used to be a problem kid. I grew up in a situation, in an environment, I wanted my father, so I stayed in trouble all the time. But some of these kids, they cry out, they get in trouble each and every day. But check this out. When they go to school, they get in trouble, they fight, they doing the craziest things. But one of the main problems is we having a problem that some of the parents not being parents anymore. We got these young people out here trying to raise these kids, but the school boards, we not doing anything about it. I was sharing with my friends at Bible study. I said, man, you got gangs in the school. You got this going on. You got that going on. And I was sharing with Sheriff Mayor. He said, Fred, you're right. But some of these other guys, and some of these kids, you know, some of these parents in here, they talking about these other schools. Well, why not fix the schools that we already got existing? There's nothing wrong with fixing the schools that we already got. We trying to vote on so many different things. I don't know what all you guys voting on because I haven't had a chance to do my research. But the thing about it, we need to fix something and help some of these kids. The young lady got up here a second ago, and she said, you know, we need to have field trips. When I grew up in these different states and I went to these different schools, we had field trips. We're not giving the kids anything to look forward to. They go to schools, they really don't have any curriculum. You got some of the teachers, they come to schools, and they scared to teach some of these kids. because they have to deal with some of the problems of some of these kids. It's really stressful. I don't even know if I could work in the school system each and every day to be dealing with some of these kids, because some of these kids, they dealing with some real psychological issues, because some of these kids, they dealing with problems. They got to deal with their parents. They're dealing with some of the situation that's actually going on in life, and we're not really caring. And some of you guys, you sit up there just like Ms. Taylor said. I go to that school each and every week and talk to some of these kids. I ain't seen none of you guys up there. Some of you guys probably coming, for political reasons, but none of you guys really don't know what none of these kids have to deal with each and every day. Man, some of these kids from Lincoln Court, man, they barely have food. What are we doing to help these kids? I go out there and I talk to these kids all the time. But we're not teaching them anything. We're so quick to kick them out of school. We're so quick to send them to alternative school. But we're so quick to pass them to the next grade. I was talking to a kid yesterday, sir. I want you to hear me out. I was talking to a kid yesterday, and this kid sit up there, had D's and F's and everything. Go ahead, sir.
Just say your 3 minutes is past. I'm
sir.
sorry. I appreciate your passion.
It's okay. I know
and
the
everything.
truth hurts.
We got the gist of it for sure. Thank you. Mr. Carter, I kept the line after him, so please be very brief, please.
You know I don't talk long.
Okay.
I want to say thanks to all of the parents that's out here for their concern of their children tonight, because it's really helpful that you see before you the children and the parents that you serve in this community. But also I want the people in this community to look at the school board. Each and every one of them has a capacity of trying to serve their community in the best way that they know how. It's not so much as we need to blame on any one individual or the school system, et cetera. It's about all of us. I'm here tonight representing those 70% of those children's parents and homes that are not here tonight. Those are the ones that's at the bottom of the list that we never very, very seldom talk about other than in passing. The issue is funding. Has been, always will be. There's other issues, but until we put the money where the money is needed from this community, that we have to make up our mind what we prioritize. And again, it's not so much as to your child as much as it is the next person's child or the next person's child. We're all in this together. This community loses about 1,200 to 1,300 people a year leaving Jackson-Madison County. Our school system ranks in the bottom percentile of the school district across the state of Tennessee. One of the things that we have to look at is the funding sources, and we need to ask for the money that is needed, not just for the money that we think that we need, and we need to prioritize how we spend that money. School buildings are not educating people. It is the people in the school system, the teachers and the staff that's running it, to educate these children, these minds. Our problem is that we're not prioritizing those 70% that needs the early childhood development piece that, yes, it's going to cost some serious money that we say that we don't have, but we do have money to spend in the jails, criminal justice system, and other areas. We need to change our priority. Don't get mad at each other. Change the focus of our funding to where we all can have a school that all of our children can go to and learn. Do we have problem children? Yes, we do. But until you reach them where they need to be reached and not socially pass these kids along, we'll continue to have this problem. We'll continue to be mad at each other. Mr. Chairman, I want to thank you and school board members, regardless of what you think about each other. You're there for a particular reason. You're going to have different ideas. And unfortunately, the ideas that the last school board left you, you have to deal with that now. So, but the bottom line is, until we start helping each and every child, not just the top 10, 15%, we can't keep having graduation rates that's high, but achievement levels that are low. That's insane. We will never grow to the expectation of this community until we get it together, and that is black and white. It shouldn't be a racial thing, but we have a good number of our people that are children. Nearly 70% are children that's mixed, that's race-oriented in terms of the color of their skin. We have to change that. We can do this, but we have to make up our mind as individuals. Our county commission needs to fund the school system, but you all need to ask for the money that you need. I thank you very kindly.
That concludes our public comments. I want to thank everyone who came out and shared your concerns with the school board. Next on our agenda is JMCEA announcement report. Mrs. Erling Price is not here with us tonight, but Mr. Jeff Davis is, so we'll hear from him at this time.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
And I can echo what everyone else has said. JMCA is definitely a supporter of Dr. Jones. Dr. Jones has been so gracious to allow us to continue our work in the schools, as well as working with the teachers. I think that the way Dr. Jones has kind of worked with us as an association has been parallel to some of the other good relationships that we've had with other superintendents as well. So I think that our job is to support Dr. Jones and support his vision as well. On a lighter note, JMCA is getting ready to have our election. So we'll elect our president, our vice president, and other members to go to some of the other assemblies that we'll have, which is TEA and NEA. So those ballots will be coming around to some of those schools. And if we could have some of you guys maybe even come out and participate in some of those things that we have when we're having our JMCA meetings, and we can kind of hash out some of those things and concerns that we have with you guys, and like we do with Dr. Jones. TEA is also having a MAC conference, which is a Minority Affairs Conference. We'll have that conference in March the 22nd. And it's a good opportunity for teachers to get professional development points, or PDPs, and it'll be in Franklin, Tennessee. And then we'll have our spring symposium, which is kind of the same scenario where teachers get to go to professional development and they can kind of enhance themselves as far as in their craft and other things that help them to deal with children. And that'll be April the 19th through the 21st in Chattanooga, Tennessee. So of course we'll be coming to Dr. Jones and to Dr. Markle and asking for those days off. As well as TEA, we'll have our representative assembly, and that's when we'll send about 28 teachers. So we'll definitely need those days off. So you get those sub lists coming into you. There are some other concerns that teachers are having, and you've heard some of those concerns for us tonight, which is one is the big one is student behavior. And teachers are concerned with some of those things and how to work with some of those discipline problems. So we're not just going to come with the problem, we're going to try to give you a solution to it, Dr. Jones. And so we're thinking about restorative practices training. So this will help us to, if you've heard of that, this is a way for us to help teachers and administrators to combat some of those different discipline problems by building relationships. I think one of the speakers spoke about talking to the children and speaking with them, and I think that is one of the missing pieces that we're missing. We're not able to have them build those relationships. It's all dealt with trying to, either send them to alternative school or just send them home. And then if we're building those relationships with those students, then of course the harmony in the classroom will exist. Also, Dr. Mark, the IPG, a lot of teachers are kind of dealing with that in different ways. It was kind of intimidating at first. It's not as intimidating, it's not as stressful as it was, but if you notice when you go to the classrooms, the students are still kind of curious about what's going on and why these people are coming into the classroom. But overall, I think that teachers are dealing with that and hoping that to be a benefit to them and to help them to enhance their practices as well, and to get to work with the principals to kind of discuss what we've done and how well we did or what we need to improve upon. And going through the different steps, and it has kind of helped those all involved to kind of build a process to kind of better our practices. So once again, we look forward to working with Dr. Jones, and we're going to ask you once again, Dr. Jones, Ms. Kim, to let us get on that calendar, and Earlene will be getting with you shortly here. And thank you guys again.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Next on the agenda is the financial report. So I'll turn it over to Mr. Nichols and Ms. Keller.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the board. Apologize, I walked into such a a boring and light meeting tonight. I know y'all got bigger fish to fry than me, so I'll be very brief on the budget amendments. The Financial Management Committee looked at it about a week ago. Dr. Jones is a member of that committee. There are 6 of them. The first one is $3,380 insurance recovery, funds received for vehicle repair and parts. Second one is $16,553 voluntary pre-K grant. This amendment aligns the general ledger with revision 2 of the budget and E-plan. Funds are being moved within the grant to cover projected expenditures through the end of the fiscal year. The third one is $2,000 Read to Be Ready Coaching Network. This amendment aligns the general ledger with the first revision budget and E-plan. Funds are being moved within the grant for the purchase of additional instructional supplies. Fund 142, School Federal Projects, $42,000, Read to Be Ready Summer Grant. And this grant, this is a new grant or an additional grant. This grant provides funding for a tuition-free, literacy-focused summer camp for students. And number 5 is $100,000 IDEA Part B. This amendment aligns the general ledger to Revision 5 budget and E-plan. Funds are being moved within the grant to cover projected expenditures through the end of the fiscal year. And the last one is $175,000 in Food Services Fund 143. This is the transfer of funds needed to cover the purchase projected expenditures through the end of the fiscal year. And as Ms. Keller will have some estimates, better estimates than we would have. Like I've told you all, our office just does those on averages for the past few years. She'll have some better estimates than we would, but it does look like this year is going to be a break-even year for general purpose schools. Mr. Chairman, any questions?
Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Nichols? All right, thank you.
Good evening. The February financial statement for the General Purpose Fund is posted. As of the end of February, $60.9 million had been expensed with an additional $2.3 million in outstanding encumbrances. This is 60.5% of the total budget as compared to being at 59.7% at the same time last year. February revenues in the amount of $12.1 million were received, bringing the total revenues for the year to $71.7 million, which is 70.2% of the budgeted revenue. Year-end projections have been added to the monthly financial statement. The current projection puts fiscal year 19 spending at an overall 97.5% of budgeted expenditures, creating a slight deficit, which would leave the fund balance near $12.8 million as of June 30th.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions for Mrs. Keller?
Mr. Chairman, Holly, you weren't at our budget committee meeting, but I think the numbers we looked at showed your projection for 2020, next year, fiscal year, to be about a $650,000 deficit. Is that, first of all, is that right? Did I remember that right? And is that still where we're at?
Those were very loose estimates to kind of show the committee the implication of some larger items, such as the preschool additions or the percentage increase raises. And so that fiscal 20 projection included like a 1.5% across the board increase. And so I'll be looking through this next month based on the requests that were given from the principals and the district supervisors and building those numbers into a more sure budget for next year, and then we'll go back and look at that.
Okay. Nothing's changed from that, though, right now. Is that right?
Right. I don't have any new numbers right now.
Okay. All right.
Thank you, Mrs. Keller. Next on the agenda is action items. begin. First thing under action items is policy committee revisions for approval. Mrs. Hampton.
Okay. The policy committee met in February, and during the February board meeting, a recommendation for the first reading was made regarding several policy revisions. A recommendation was not made during that time to waive the second reading due to a correction of policy 4.600, to which a name change of Montessori School of Bemis to Community Montessori had not been changed as indicated from the February policy committee meeting. So during this March board meeting, upon correction of policy 4.600, a recommendation is being presented for the February policy revisions once again for the first reading. And we now ask to waive the second reading of these policy revisions.
So that coming from a committee, it does not require a second?
That's correct.
Is there any discussions, any questions for Mrs. Hampton? Are we ready to vote?
Ms. Hampton, I do have a question.
Yes.
There were no new policies added from our meeting that we had last month. The only reason that we're doing this again is because that one policy,
That is
we
correct.
didn't change the name on it.
That is correct.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
Okay, are we ready to vote? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? It passes unanimously. Next on the agenda is the K-8 land on Ashport Road. I have talked to Dale Thomas this week about how to deal with this situation because it was put on the table. And the first thing we must do is remove it from the table to be procedurally correct. So with that being said, I make the motion to remove the recommendation of the board as a courtesy to Dr. Jones at his request that the board approves $30,000 to extend the option on additional 6 months for property on Ashport Road. So that is my motion. My motion is to remove that from the table and to deal with that tonight. Is there a second?
Second.
Wayne Arnold, second. Is,
Just as a point of parliamentary order, because we're removing something from the table, there is no discussion.
so, all in favor? Do we want to use the practice? We'll practice this way, all right. So we'll use the little things here. So all in favor? Or let's just cast our votes. That's the way we do it, I guess.
Morris, you got to vote. Okay.
We good? Okay, so you gotta leave it up there so she can count the votes. You gotta hold it where you want it.
It's up there.
Please hold your vote until till Janet says it's cleared.
Okay.
So you got it.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
is it time to have action?
It's off the table, correct? Yep.
Yes.
Okay, okay. Thank you. Okay, Mr. Johnson.
If I could, Mr. Chairman, could I amend the motion?
You may.
The amendment is actually allow the additional $30,000 on the property. But my second part of the amendment is that the Director of Schools, along with yourself, the Chairman, bring us back at least 2 additional options in the next 120 days. So we actually will have, we know that the land may be good, but there may be something better, greater, that I think that the board and the community should have an option to look at. That's my reasoning, and comments on my reasoning is the fact that I think that there's a lot of miscommunications about some of the board members not wanting the school, the K-8 school at Pope. If you remember years ago, Leonard Pearson, my neighbor, was principal at Pope Elementary School. That was over 20 years ago. The school was almost at capacity then. Actually, the school should have been, a new school should have been built out there before Vision 2020 closed all community schools. That's my personal opinion. So I think that's not an issue with any board members that the school is needed. But my amendment is that we do due diligence by having an option which I have never had.
So your amendment would be that, would you repeat your amendment one more time, please?
My amendment that we continue to allow the option of the $30,000, but the amendment I want to make is that the director of schools and our board chairman, which is our executive committee, bring us back at least 2 additional options within 120 days.
Okay, that would require a second. Is there a second for the amendment? Is there a second?
I would like to, before, well, you have the motion on the board now. and I
There's no
can't-
discussion right now.
There's got to be a second.
I second.
Second by Doris Black. So now we'll vote on the amendment
Discussion.
after we have a discussion.
Yes.
That's what I want to do, discuss.
So, discussion.
Mr. Chairman, putting that amendment's really unnecessary because we're continuing to look for other properties out there anyway. And stretching it, given 120 days, is running this thing out to the end again. There's no need for an amendment. We're continuing, if I'm not mistaken, you and Dr. Jones are continuing to look at other properties out there to demand as part of this amendment that you have to bring back 2 options to look at. You can't do that. That's just impossible.
That being said, I have talked to Dr. Jones. We have talked several times about additional property. And one of the things why I think it is necessary is the fact that Dr. Jones didn't feel like he had the approval of the board to bring other options for us to consider. So that's why I believe it is necessary to do.
Mr. Chairman, may I ask the superintendent something? This is what I wanted to discuss before, but I want to know, with the, we're approving, this motion is approving the $30,000. Am I correct?
Correct.
Yeah, my question is, what would be the cost of, because first of all, I have to thank people who have supported me, thank you who have not supported but called. But like Mr. Steve said before, I cannot be bullied. And the mean conversations and the name calling has got to go. But I'd like to know what would be the cost to put two traffic lights out on Old Humboldt Road in Ashwood. Would we have to pay for that, or would the county? Because my whole concern has always been just not, I want a school. I campaigned on a new school. But I just fear the traffic jam. I've been up there doing school out, and it's been bad. So if we put another school on those narrow roads, is it possible that we could put a traffic light there? And a turn lane?
I think.
Please, excuse me, Mr. Please, we're trying to have a meeting here. I asked everybody very politely, no outbursts, none. They're not acceptable. We're trying to have a meeting here. We want y'all here, and we want y'all to hear what we're what we're talking about and what we're discussing, but please, no more outbursts. That's very disrespectful. Thank you.
And that has been my concern the whole while. Yes, a new school, but the traffic jam. And would we have to pay for it, or would the county have to pay for it, or how would that work?
And I want to echo Mr. Alexander's comments, and I appreciate everyone's support and kind words, but I do not want this to turn ugly by no means. Every board member here has a right to their opinion, a right to say what they want to say and agree or disagree however they want to. And we need to respect that. And so in answering your question, Ms. Black, I do not know the answer to that, and all that will be vetted out during this process to find out what we can and can't do, and I will bring that information back to this board. One thing we got to be careful of the language we use when we say option, because we have an option on land right now. If I understand what you're saying, Mr. Johnson, how did I forget you? You want to know what else is available. Is that fair? Because to go out and try to get 2 other options on land, that's a tall ask. What we can continue to do is go through our realtor to find out what land is available, what those asking prices are, and bring that back to you. My concern, though, is bringing it back in a public fashion. We have to be careful how we do that. I don't know if you're asking me to secure an option on land or if you're asking me just to bring you other choices to consider.
Yes, I do mean choices, but the reason why I added the amendment, I want it to be official.
Okay,
yes.
And so I think we need to decide as a board, do you trust me enough to do that and pick up the phone and call you, because that's what we did the previous board. I want to make sure to call you and tell you what I've found out and discuss if it gets to the point that we find something that we think we may like, then I would get consensus to try to pursue a second option. But I would be reluctant to try to get 2 or 3 other options on land. I definitely can continue to look for land and report back to you what we found. And if by talking to you, we decide that, hey, we want to pursue this land as well, I think that's definitely doable.
My question, do you have a time frame of when we will know, be finished vetting the Ashport property?
I would hope in the next 2 to 3 months that can happen. We have narrowed down our architects to 5, and after spring break, we will be calling those architects in to choose an architect and hopefully begin the process of allowing them to take a look at a proposed site and provide us more insight. We've already had preliminary looks from a civil engineer, and we have those drawings to get an idea of what we would like to see in the school. Would it fit on the site? And from the civil engineer's drawing, they fit on the site. Now, there will have to be some work and still some questions to be asked, but we will start going down that path.
Any other discussion?
Would you read the motion again? I want to make.
It's amendment to approving the $30,000.
Amendment or the original motion?
You want the original motion again?
Yeah, what is the motion? Yeah. The motion
The
is.
amendment or the original motion? You want the amendment?
Both.
The original motion, let me find it. I didn't move it around. The original motion is a recommendation that the board approves $30,000 to extend the option on an additional 6 months for the property on Ashport Road. That is the motion. The amendment is, what I've wrote down is for the directors of schools and the chairman of schools to bring back 2 or more additional options within 120 days, which would be 6 months, which is, we want to have this done in 3 months, correct? 90 days.
Not options I want to do.
I think it goes back to I can go and look for land and bring back what I'm finding. And I think if it rises to the level of us feeling like, hey, that's land you want me to pursue, I can talk about pursuing that land in the form of an option. And I think we need to get to that point. But at the same time, we're moving forward with this land. So what I guess what I'm saying is I will continue to look for other land, and I will tell you what I find and try to gather consensus as to whether you want, what you want me to pursue. And if I pursue that, I will, now we're also making an assumption that these people are going to want to do an option. And some people may not be for that, and we'll have to find that information out. So, but if we find another piece of land that we want to pursue, I will try to pursue that, and I would love to try to pursue that in the next 2 to 3 months. I think that is a reasonable time frame that gives us enough wiggle room there, but I don't want to extend this out any longer than we have to. Because we're already looking at land. We have some land now that I think we can have conversations about, and I can find out, are they willing to entertain giving us that land or putting an option on that land.
So how do you want to continue forward with your motion? Do you want to, I mean, it's on the, I guess we must vote on the amendment. It's on the.
I just would like to change the options to possibilities, possible other properties.
So instead of options, it would be possibility.
Right, possible, other possible property, yeah.
Additional possible properties. Does that sound right?
Yes,
Additional
yes,
properties? That is
Mr.
that?
Chairman, I'd like to call for the question.
Okay, but before we do, before we call for the, all right, let's, that being said, let's vote.
What, calling for the question requires.
Well, it does require a second, excuse me, yes. Is there a second for calling for the question?
Second.
Mr. Massey seconds it. All in favor of,
Jim, I'm sorry, Jim, did you want to ask something?
Yeah, well, I had a question, but I
Okay,
guess we need to vote on the question before I can ask a question.
I withdraw my second.
Okay.
Mr. Campbell, go ahead.
He
Yeah.
withdrew the second.
Dr. Jones, are you okay with this 120 date? Does that make sense with?
No, I would like to amend that 120 days. I think we can redo this in a reasonable 2 to 3 months.
Okay.
Get this done. I will kind of look at Ray. All right. Yeah. So I would say definitely no longer than 3 months that we could have enough time to bring back plenty of information to the board. But even so, I think 3 months is enough time. But if we find more information before then, we can bring that to the board anytime in that 3 months. Is that okay?
Absolutely.
All right.
All right.
So-
So I'm changing my amendment from 190 to 90 days.
So now, the amendment states, the directors of schools and the chairman of schools will bring back 2 or more additional possible properties for the new K-8 out north within 90 days. Are we ready to vote on this?
So we're voting on the amendment.
Voting on the amendment. Did you want to say something, Mr. Arnold?
I'd kind of like to just add, if available, because there may not be anything available.
Yeah, now, we're not talking about a lot of options either, so I just want to make
Can I amend the amendment to say, if available?
Well, I just looked that up, actually, Mr. Arnold.
He can amend, he can amend.
He can amend the amendment.
Are you good? Are you, if available?
Okay.
So we'll just, if everybody's okay with that, we'll just forego that, and I'll write if available down. Are we okay with that? If available.
It's actually called a secondary amendment.
Thank you.
It's on page 49 of your Robert's Rules of Order book.
Okay. All right, so here is the amendment. The director of schools and the chairman of schools will bring back 2 or more additional possible properties within 90 days for the K-8 school if applicable. If available, yeah, if available. Excuse me, I can't even read my own writing. If available. So are we ready to vote?
Got that?
All those in, well, we'll just vote.
We're voting on the amendment.
We're voting on the amendment.
Yeah, just leave it alone.
Clear. All right. You can put back now.
So now we're back on the original motion.
Okay, that motion, the amendment passed 6-3. So now, the original motion plus the amendment reads, a recommendation that, wait a minute, excuse me, let me get back to my place. From the Long Range Planning Committee recommended that recommended at the courtesy of Dr. Jones, that the board approves $30,000 to extend the option an additional 6 months for the property on Ashport Road. And the amendment that would be added to it would be the director of schools and the chairman of schools bring back 2 or more additional possible properties within 90 days if available. Is there any discussion?
I'll just say thank you, Pope families and parents and administrators and teachers and folks for showing up. We heard you loud and clear, and I think that anything less than doing what you ask is a travesty, and it's a slap in the face, in my opinion. You guys have waited long enough, and the most populous part of the county, the fastest growing part of the county, the part of the county with the most 0 through 9-year-olds, and that's factual. I'll email you the facts if you'd like them later, needs a quality school. I had a constituent, no, I did not have a constituent. I had an individual call me today and say, no one goes to public school in the Northwest area. Why would you put a public school out there? Which was laughable, because I said, because they don't have a good option right now. There's no space. And I'll say again, just for the record, I got a phone call today from somebody I've known for a long, long time. She has an 11-year-old, and she, through open enrollment, applied to 3 different schools in our system. She's waitlisted on 3 different schools in our system, and she knows that Pope's not an option because it's full. So 4 tries, she's trying to come to a public school. They're at JCS right now. She's trying to come to a public school, desperate to, because it's putting a strain on their finances and their family. And she is desperate to come to the public school, and we don't have room for her. She lives in the Pope district. She just understands the environment there. Her daughter rather, has special needs, not getting the services that she needs at JCS. And by the way, she's paying taxes, city and county, to support that Pope school that she can't send her child to. So that's just for the record. Obviously, y'all know where I stand. I appreciate you guys coming out.
We ready to vote? Does everybody have the motion? Do I need to read it again?
No, we
No, we got it. Good, because I've spoken through it enough already. All right. Let's vote on the K-8 property and the amendment.
Did you get it, Jen?
Okay. Moving on, next on the agenda is long-range planning to reopen Melissa School for a pre-K program. Mr. Merriweather.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, reading from my notes, Dr. Jones presented to the long-range planning a parents' survey for early bail. The long-range planning committee was wanting input from the parents to change the bail time of Jackson-Madison County school system.
Hey, excuse me, Mr. That's in committee reports. This right now is action item just on the long-range planning to reopen Melissa School.
You're not asking for the committee report?
Yeah, the committee report, that part will come later. Okay,
Sir?
sorry.
Okay. We're talking about the motion on reopen Melissa's.
Right.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, then prior to me reading my motion, may I read comments before the motion, or you want the motion?
Well, I mean, you're given, well, I guess that would be, I guess we ought to have to have the motion. It doesn't require a second, and then you can speak to whatever you want to speak to.
Okay.
As far as that.
Okay, the recommendation that I would like to put in the form of a motion is that Melissa School be reopened for pre-kindergarten classes, and that Dr. Jones provide the figures at the next board meeting. That's my motion.
And of course, that doesn't require a second because it comes from a committee. Now, do you want to speak?
Yes, sir, I do. Okay, I appreciate that Dr. Jones shared the figures on Tuesday of this week so that we would have the opportunity to study them. We must keep in mind that these figures represent the last year numbers. The sign-up for this year just began a couple weeks ago. According to Dr. Jones' figures, we were not able to provide for 168 students last year. With more availability, we could easily need 300 more spaces for pre-K for the next year. Governor Lee indicated that he would be proposing more state funding for pre-K classes. If this happened, we could fund 15 more pre-K classes in July of this year with a minimum cost to local taxpayers. As Dr. Jones' report shows, schools in the northern portion of the district like Pope, Thelma Barker, and East does not have adequate provision for pre-K. In the days ahead, the demands will overload Nova Pre-K Center. Schools like Arlington, Alexander, Isaac Lane are actually closer to Melissa than they are to Nova. Temporary arrangements for classes at South Elementary is very temporary fix. South is already at capacity. 457 students enrolled as reported in the last October figures with a capacity of 420, so we're over capacity now. Good long-range planning need to provide for the pre-K without overloading our schools. The bottom line is that if we do not put Melissa's back online, there is a very good chance that we will have to ask the county commission to build additional schools within the next 2 to 5 years to accommodate the growth of pre-K. What we could do to put online what we could put online for less than $1 million would cost the taxpayer $15 million. We have the opportunity to save millions of dollars and save the school building that we would lose otherwise. I encourage the board to adopt this recommendation.
Discussion?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes. Mr. Johnson.
Is this good time to amend the motion? Actually, in the long-range planning committee meeting, I made the motion. The chairman just read the motion I made. But I'd like to amend that motion based on some of the soft figures that Dr. Jones has provided us, maintenance costs, startup costs, administration, those type things, and the numbers from last year's pre-K enrollment. You stated the pre-K enrollment process is still continuing and going on now, I think. So based on that fact that we don't know how many students we're not going to be able to serve, and we also don't know currently what state funding will be. I think we'll know that probably in May, I think. that I want to amend the motion that we reopen or bring releases back online pending the sign-up numbers and funding approval by our funding body.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I would like to hear Dr. Jones' intake upon this.
Well, we need a second for the amendment, or the amendment
Okay, did you?
can't go, because we've got an amendment on the floor, so we need a second, and
You
then
make the amendment.
we would have a discussion.
I'll second the motion.
Mr. Merriweather, second the motion to amend. All right, now, Mrs. Hampton.
Yes, I just stated that I would like to hear Dr. Jones' input on this.
Dr. Mark, if you don't mind, will you, first of all, going back to the long-range plan, if you remember, I did put on that long-range plan the possible, can you see? That's bigger back there, I'm looking there, all right.
That's tiny.
All right. The possible opening of Melissa's as a pre-K. And the reason I said possible is because there's a lot of things that have to be vetted and looked at in terms of what's the best way to adequately do that. And as a school system, we have an abundance of needs, but we don't have all the resources. And even if you gave us $10 million more, we're still going to have needs. So that's always going to be there. But what you're looking at, last year so now what we do not know is how many students of the 167 students, how many students that did not register, or how many students that registered and did not get in. Of that 167 students, what's the total above that went to some form of pre-K? We are still trying to ascertain what that number may be. And some of them are going to private schools in the city. Some of them are going to early pre-K centers throughout the district. So we can't make the assumption that they're not being served. But there were 167 students that tried to get in that we did not have slots for. So that's the number I want us to focus on right now, and that's the number that Mr. Johnson is talking about, that we do not know that right now because they're in the process of enrolling and trying to find seats. But as you look at that top number, adding pre-K classes at Melissa's, of course, adding pre-K classes at Melissa's as opposed to adding them within schools in our district will definitely come at a greater cost because we are now talking about bringing another school online. The rough capital numbers would be about $1.8 million over the next 2 years. That's just HVAC and roofing and standard things that just have to be there. That is not taking into account TLM doing a full study because this is a school that's 30 years and older. And that would take at least 6 weeks for them to do. So we don't know what the long-term cost would be in reopening that school. So you can see the ongoing costs if we were to just add 5 classes. You're looking at about $839,000, which includes a leader of that school, assistants, a secretary, and a few other staffing positions. At one point, we were talking about 10, so you can, I don't see the 10 on here, but I think the 10 number was about 1.6 million in operational costs. So I look at this and say, absolutely, we need to expand pre-K. I think all 9 have always been in favor of that. But as you look at where the need is, just out of that 167, you see 48 came from the south and Denmark cluster, 76 from the center cluster, and 43 from East Jackson. And that's not even looking at what's happening in North Jackson. So in my mind, another option that we can look at would be down there toward the bottom, you could see expanding possibly 5 pre-K classes. And as you look at where need is, if you put 3 classes at Lincoln, that is serving that East Jackson cluster where you have 76 that could not get in. And if you see that, and then you have 20 at South and 20 at Denmark, if you just go on last year's number, you're talking about 8 students that would not have been able to get in. And the ongoing operational costs for that, or the first year cost would be $593,000, but the ongoing cost would be $451,000. So it's much more cost effective to spread it out over the current schools that we have. But I think we also need to look at, as we look at enrollment numbers every year, you start to see, is there more need? And you add a class or 2 or 3 or 4, and you do this much more strategically, because you have to remember, this is just one set of needs. There are a whole bunch of other needs that are not even on the table here. But you can blow up our budget and blow up everything if we try to go too far, too fast. So and believe me, I tarried long in our executive committee meetings. About once a month, we would sit and troubleshoot about what is a cost-effective way to open up Melissa's. But the numbers do not lie. And that's what I was asked to bring, and that's what I'm bringing. The numbers tell us that opening up Melissa's, I mean, it's still gonna be half-empty building that we're pumping a lot of money into, and that just does not make good financial sense.
I would just like to say, concerning Melissa's, I've been on the board for 2.5 years now, and one thing I've got consistently for 2.5 years is let's do something with Melissa's. Either open the school back up or give it back to the family, because it is supposed to divert back to the family that donated that property. I'm not exactly sure how that is written and exactly what it says. I haven't looked at that.
Mr. Chairman, I thought that property would go back to the county.
I believe I'm pretty sure it goes, I thought it went back to the people who donated the property. I'm pretty sure that is that was in that contract.
Mr. Chairman, it's just a small piece that would.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, just a small piece of that property.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, all right, well, I stand corrected then.
Yeah.
But my thing still is we need to make a decision about what we're gonna do with that school. If we can use it for a pre-K, if we can look at it and see what it would cost to open it, see if we could, open it up as a pre-K, or if it was not, if it just wasn't feasible to open it up, at least we would know in the next few months, so we can make a decision on that property if we look into this and go from there. I just want to do what's best for Melissa's and for pre-K, because I know we want to expand pre-K, and I know that is important.
Mr. Washington, could I ask you a couple questions, or maybe I need to direct him to the superintendent, since he's the one that sent us these numbers about, I'm assuming they probably came from you and your team. It is my understanding that, and it's right up here, to open, like if we wanted to put Melissa's back online, 1.6 million. Is that correct? I'm sorry to put you on the spot, Mr. Washington.
What it would take to get the building in the best shape possible to educate children.
Okay.
No, hold on one second, let me, yeah. It would take 1.6 million. So I think, you gotta remember, you're talking about 2 buckets of money. You're talking about capital needs, and
Yes.
you're talking about operational. If
Okay.
we were to open up 10 classes of pre-K at Montessori, at Melissa's, it would cost us about $1.6 million operational. It'll take us approximately $1.8 million capital to do that over 2 years. So I want to make sure I say that I don't know that all of that will have to be done in that first year, but over 2 years, it would take at least that. And that's not taking into account TLM coming to do a study and what else that would take.
So that's 1.6 plus 1.8.
Yes, but you gotta remember it's two, yes.
Okay.
It'll cost $3.5 million to do it, but it's two separate buckets of money. And so you gotta remember, when we start talking about capital, if we put capital there, we're probably taking capital from somewhere else.
Sure, that means another school's not gonna get a roof or other projects that are already ongoing or that have already been approved.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes. Mr. Merriweather.
we didn't have this discussion when we closed the pre-K program at Whitehall. There was not this long discussion. There was some people came in, teachers came in and spoke, and then we moved right along. That was a closing of a school from the previous board. That was all of that Vision 2020 that hindsight says the money that was supposed to have been saved. I know what I'm talking about because I attended every one of those meetings. That money was never saved like they said it was gonna be saved. Now we got, item number 3, the most immediate need is a pre-K in East Jackson. We had a pre-K in East Jackson, and we closed it. Now we're talking about it's too much money to open it up. Where I'm headed is I think that all of the district need to have pre-K in that district, and we all agree that that need to be. When you let that school set up for 3 years, we got new HVAC system there in one portion of it. New roof on one of it. We just throwing millions of dollars away. We're supposed to be good stewards of the money, but it's about whether I want it in my district or you wanted it. Too many personality has come into play. We're not thinking about the children. Pre-K is for our children. That's every boy and girl. We're not talking about zip code. So I'm in favor of opening that school. I know that it's gonna take some money, but it's also gonna take money to pay for demolition when we got Lincoln School coming offline. There's been no discussion that I'm aware of doing something with Lincoln. To bulldoze that school down, we're talking about $250,000. We got other schools just sitting up, and we just letting schools, we're just closing schools, sitting, and we're not doing the discussion. But tonight, we're acting very intelligent. But somewhere along the line was a lot of bad decisions made, and the community needs to quit playing games and thinking that we up here trying to do bad things. You need to hold us accountable for what has happened. And that previous board closed a lot of schools that's costing you millions of dollars. Now we're talking about saving money, what's right and what's wrong. It was wrong then and it's wrong now. And that's where I am.
Mr. Chairman, can I, go ahead.
No, go ahead. The only thing I'll add that Lincoln will go back to the city once we no longer have use for it. So we won't be responsible for that.
But taxpayers gonna have to pay for it. I pay city taxes.
Me too.
Okay, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Mr. Johnson.
We discussed, we actually toured Melissa's. We talked about the cost, the issues and all those things. One of the things I think is dire need is hopefully, if it's just 167 students, if we open up one school or one location for those kids, it'll be the first time in the history of this county that we actually had all of our pre-K kids enrolled in school. Statewide, only 34% of the kids in 3rd grade read at grade level. Pre-K is a leg those kids need, and most of those kids, it's not just black kids, it's poor kids and underserved kids that need that leg up. And all I'm saying is, we ask for the funding. If we don't get the funding, we done our due diligence. And my thing and our thing is for the kids. Somebody said that they didn't think that we were for the kids. I ran kids first. Every kid can succeed with equity. It means they get a leg up, the ones that have that need it. And teachers, supporting our quality teachers. Those are 2 things I ran on. I'm not gonna back off that, and I don't care. Somebody say that I'm not for kids. I'm for kids. I've got probably family in just about every kid, every school in this system. That's all I got.
Mr. Arnold?
Yeah, I want to go back to a couple of things. First of all, Whitehall was initially moved to Nova due to weather damage to that building. It wasn't moved for any other reason. We didn't talk about shutting it down. There was quite the fight about moving Whitehall to Nova. A couple of us that are on the board today, we had our reservations about that. We didn't want to move that to Nova. Now, we have the opportunity here, instead of spending, $1.8 million in capital repairs on something that's over 30 years old. We're going to have to do the additional lead testing every year, aren't correct, Alan, on that building. We have the opportunity right here with existing facilities and what's currently being built at the remodel addition at Whitehall to put those same every kid that asks for pre-K in a seat.
That's with the 167 from last year. We don't know what the number's gonna be. Plus, futuristic-wise, we don't know how many kids we're gonna need in the next 5 years. We talk about long-range planning. I think if we're serious about long-range planning, I think that's what we need to think about also.
Mr. Chairman. if I may.
Yes, Mrs. Hampton.
I had discussed with Superintendent Dr. Jones concerning a retreat. We have so much on our agenda that it looks real messy. I'm gonna be honest with you. And, you know, with everything that's going on, we need to set aside a day or two just to bring these items up for discussion during the retreat. Basically, we just need to get an understanding about what each other feel, what they feel like, what's the best option, even regards to Pope, Melissa's, and any other things. But my concern is this, you know, we're actually fighting the wrong battle. Our battle that's coming up is gonna be these vouchers. Now, what's gonna take place with these vouchers is certainly that we may even have to close some schools. You know, we may even have to let teachers go due to the fact that parents would have a choice in their education where they would want to educate their children or their child. And with this being said, we may have an overcrowdedness of schools for one specific district area, you know, I want my child here, or even to the fact that the parents would have a choice to put their kids in private schools. Where would it lead us in continuing serving our public education? Now, that's the real fight. Now, everybody is here tonight, and if you want to fight something or if you got something that you need to say, I believe that it needs to go to Nashville, to our governor, to tell him that vouchers is not the best thing for public education at this point in time. We're sitting here, we're making plans for this, we're making plans for that, but there's no guarantee. If these vouchers come into place, it'll change the whole entire game. And we're back at the table making other discussions concerning what to do with our students in this district. So I say this, you know, and I mean this, I talked to you about having 2 to 3 retreats, you know, in a school particular year because it's needed. We cannot get everything done just in board meetings and work sessions, you know, that's just not happening. In order for our system to move forward, in order for our system to grow like it needs to, we need to do what's best in every aspect, and that is take the time, 2 to 3 times out of a year, have a retreat, bring these things up for discussion, so when it comes to the time to the board meetings, you know, people would know exactly what's on the table, what's gonna be voted for, what we need to do, how we need to move, and to make some adjustments. You know, everybody could come in up on this just to say, you know, we're doing this in order to do what's right in our district here in Jackson-Madison County. Because not only will it affect Jackson-Madison County, it will affect other school districts as well. So I say to you, the fight tonight is not about Pope, Melissa's, or anything else. It's about waiting to see what these vouchers are gonna do because it's gonna change every dynamic if it's passed. You know, parents will have a choice. They'll have a Pacific card with 7,000 or more dollars to indicate, you know, where you want to take your child. It could be homeschool, private school, or either, you know, Montessori, but everybody can't get in that particular school. So where does it leave the rest of the schools that nobody else want to go to? It leaves them possibly vacant. We might have to close some more, like I stated before. We possibly would have to let teachers go and principals go. This is the fight that we're fighting, but nobody is seeming to think that it's necessary at this point in time, but it's quite necessary. And I say before we make any decisions about anything further, that we need to really have a serious retreat and just bring things up for discussion as to where we would like for this to go. That's my intake with this.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I ask that we suspend the rules and kick this back to committee and possibly a treat, genuine long-range planning committee, instead of 2 weeks' notice.
Suspend the rules. Now, somebody's gonna have to help me with that.
Okay,
'cause
hold
that's-
on.
This came as a motion and a second out of
Yeah.
committee, so
Yeah.
therefore you
Well,
have to.
we're actually on the amendment right now. We're still on the amendment. So do we need to vote on the amendment before, are you wanting to suspend the rules?
I'm wanting to suspend the rules.
And
On
send-
the
So what,
amendment.
you're wanting to suspend the rules and send this back to Mr. Meriwether and his long-range planning committee? And us possibly, like Ms. Hampton suggested, have a retreat and
retreat,
discuss?
yes.
Okay. Let me see here. I wasn't expecting that tonight.
You're welcome.
Okay. I'm sorry, y'all. You know, another option, Mr. Arnold,
Go ahead.
would be to table this motion.
We're still on the amendment right now.
Okay, well, we could table that too.
We gotta-
Forget suspend the rules, because we aren't supposed to table motions that have been seconded. They have to be acted on.
That's correct.
That
You're
was
correct.
done wrong last time.
Yes, you're
So-
correct.
Just forget my suspension of the rules. We'll carry on.
Chairman, if you listen to what Board Member Hampton said, based upon the fact of the voucher system, think about this. If that's the case, going back to what you're saying about the voucher system, then we need to dispense with the property on Ashport Road, dispense with reopening the school, just dispense with everything and hold tight till we find out where we are. If that's what we're gonna do. We can't use it for one thing and then don't use it for the
Well,
other.
actually, technically, we can.
It wouldn't make sense.
Well, we do a lot of things that
So
don't
with
make sense, Morris. I'm sorry.
That's not free. Call for the question.
Mr. Chairman, if I can.
Yes, Mr. Campbell.
Is the amendment contingent on funding
Right.
for both operational and for capital?
Yes, that
And
is
who-
my understanding.
And who are you looking, is that from the county, from the state, from who?
I think from my understanding, would you repeat your amendment again?
Actually, it's two funding sources. One, the state money, we won't know about the government money until around May. And the other funds, the capital fund, is from our funding body, which is the county commission.
And you won't know on that till when? July, right?
Exactly.
So, Dr. Jones, is that, I mean, you have to be hiring teachers. How can we possibly
I said
wait
bring.
till then?
Wait a minute, gentlemen, I said bring online, I didn't say open.
Bring online.
Yeah.
Just to bring it forward.
Bring online, means you put it on the, our priority list.
I'm still not clear.
Bring it online and start, put it on our priority list with our current schools that's operational. The schools that we have operational now that we do maintenance and have priority list optional, like, maintenance issues that need to be done, like HVAC, those type of things. That's what I mean by bring online.
Yeah, so I think what Mr. Campbell's trying to say is that the time frame you're talking about when we'll find this information out is probably typically May, late April, May, and the turnover time to try to get Melissa's open and all that, that wouldn't happen. It's gonna be tough right now, but it definitely wouldn't happen in that time frame. So I think that's
my question.
Trying to get it from May to August.
That's what I'm trying to
I
understand.
do know that wouldn't be possible.
Dr. Jones, question with all of this, and you were saying, based on the fact of what Governor Lee is going to do with the kindergarten and all of that. Now, if we do get the money, which we should, because it's based on the needy schools, and our district is a needy school, would we have any space other than Melissa to put?
Yes, that's what that,
if you. Other than those five I'm talking.
But no, well, and I don't know that we need to, so I don't know this thing about Governor Lee.
Right.
I'm not familiar
we don't
with
know.
that. So I think that's a big if right now.
That's what I'm saying.
But I think we can try to pursue incremental extension, and so in my mind, we have to figure out a number of seats that we would like to pursue as far as pre-K. And we just use 5 classrooms as an example. You know, that if we were to extend 5, that would put a pretty good dent on, all we have to go with what we have. And what we have is from last year's numbers. That would be more than half of the 167 that we did. And we could, now here's the other piece that would have to happen. And that's where this retreat needs to happen, because I think there are some other things that we need to talk about. Because also Alexander could be a possibility of a place to expand pre-K. And so I think it's very prudent for us to completely utilize the space we have before we start opening up other things. That's just financially responsible. I go back to starting out with this, we have an abundance of needs and we need every single dollar. So we have to be very careful in what we're doing, and that's what you guys say, hey, Dr. Jones, here's what we're really trying to do. It's my job to try to figure out a way to get that, because I'm hearing conflicting things. I hear more of us trying to do a solid for Melissa's as opposed to really expanding pre-K, and we got to be careful with that. That I completely understand the thought there, but more important than anything that I hear is the need to expand pre-K, and we can do that, but it does not have to be at Melissa's.
Any further discussion?
I just basically said we could just beat this horse to death. We
Right.
just talking about whether we're gonna do this or not. What the public does not know is how in the heck do we close those schools in the first place? There was some politics involved, and that war was between 2 individuals, 2 people who was officials of this county. And that school was closed. Now that school is costing us money along with other schools. We're opening and closing school. We opened Nova back up. We got over $1 million at Whitehall, $3.5 million for 10 classrooms. We are not good stewards of the taxpayers' money. And it's time for us to vote up or down. I call for the question.
Is there a second on calling for the question? Mr. Johnson's called for the second. All those in favor We'll just vote. We'll just practice
Just the
again.
amendment?
Okay, so what
This
are we?
this is calling for a question.
Calling for the question.
So we're gonna
What,
vote. If you vote yes on calling for the question, we will go straight to the amendment and deal with, and vote on the amendment. If you vote no, we will continue to discuss. Okay, so call for the question. We're going to, back to the vote on the amendment. All right. The amendment, more time if you don't mind.
My amendment was based on actual sign-up numbers and based on funding.
So,
Can I suggest something, that it be a little more detailed than that? We're talking about $3 million here. You're talking about capital and operational money, is that right? I mean, we're talking about a lot of money here.
Yeah.
Yeah, first of all, we don't have to spend all the money in 1 year. I think you're trying to cloudy, my amendment.
I'm just trying to understand it.
Okay.
I'm not trying to cloud it.
Okay.
But I don't understand, and I don't understand how the timing works. So I'm not trying to cloud it, Mr. Johnson, I'm just trying to understand it.
I didn't even, in my amendment, it wasn't a time frame. I said bring it back online. I didn't say open it up. I wanted to add it to the maintenance and routine maintenance like all the other operational schools. Because we're spending money on it anyway, right? We already spent money on, excuse me, on HVAC and partial HVAC, part of the services, roofing, part of the services. It only makes sense if we're gonna keep, we gotta make a decision whether we're gonna keep it, the building, I turn it back over to whether it's the county, the property owners, whomever. But the need is your kids. And the funds, if we can't get the funding, we don't get the funding. Then there's two types of funding that funds, it's government funds, and of course, there's the county commissioners in this funds. The operational, actually, we have to align our budget with some of those funds, like we do every year.
but we've called for the question. We need to vote on the amendment. So, all those in favor of the amendment would say yes, and all those opposed would say no. The amendment passes 5-4. So now to the motion as a whole was to, would you like to state the whole thing as a whole again? I don't have, state the original motion that came from the.
My motion on the floor is that Melissa's be reopened for pre-K classes and that Dr. Jones provide the figures at the next board meeting.
But so your amendment is pending the sign-up numbers and budget funding for this.
Correct.
So in other words, for the Melissa's to be reopened for pre-K classes pending the sign-up numbers and the budget funding. Would that be how the motion would read?
And if I can, I don't mean to cloud anything, but after hearing I'm confused. Is it to be opened in September of this year, or is it just to get the HVAC working and it goes online?
I think is what it's saying is
Okay,
to.
well, maybe I can add some clarity that make it easier so we getting confused.
Yeah.
The motion is that Melissa School be reopened for pre-K classes, and that Dr. Jones bring the figures back where if you don't have the figures, you can't open the school.
That's right.
So all of this is contingent upon when the figures come back, the board will look at the figures, the county commission will make the decision if they will provide the funds. It's a possibility we all could vote all 9 of us. And if the county commissioners does not provide the money, Melissa's doesn't open up. Our job is to provide the motion to reopen the school, and then Dr. Jones bring the figures back. We look at that and approve it, and then it goes on to the county commission for funding. I don't see why that's so complicated.
Well, forgive me, it's just, let me just make one comment, Mr. Chairman, if I could. I think in November, we voted 8-1 on a 10-year capital plan. And we're not giving Dr. Jones a chance to implement it. We're constantly coming in, and we're trying. We are tying Dr. Jones and his staff up continuously, and I'll use the word everybody else uses, we're micromanaging him instead of trusting him to do his job. And so now I don't understand what we're about to vote on, because we're saying we want him to reopen it, and we want to start pre-K if we get funding. We're not going to know if we get funding until, if he started right now, I don't know that he could get that school ready to be reopened. So now we're saying we want to wait until funding. But from 2,000 feet, I think it's a great example of why we as a board should trust the superintendent to implement his plan.
Mr. Chairman, for clarification purposes, and it's continuing to be said in the community and it's confusing people, Dr. Jones is here tonight and we can clear it up. The 10-year plan that everybody keep on saying is Dr. Jones' plan is not Dr. Jones' plan. Dr. Jones came and inherited a plan from the previous board, that Vision 2020 board. And then Dr. Jones have tweaked the plan and added to the plan, and then people are saying, Dr. Jones hadn't said my plan. People are saying that's Dr. Jones' plan. He's here tonight, and if it's Dr. Jones' plan, ask him on the record, is everything on the 10-year plan was created by him and not by the previous board? That's the question that needs to be asked for the public to quit saying that.
Yes.
That is not
And
true.
that's, and
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman. I just want to address the fact that that previous board that approved all this stuff on this 10-year plan that was presented by Dr. Jones was not that Vision 2020 board. Chairman Alexander was on that board. I was on that board. I am the most anti-Vision 2020 person out there. Vision 2020 died when we got that man as superintendent. This is the plan that this board, including the board previous to you, adopted.
that's right. That's right.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Johnson.
my amendment was to the motion, and I think I was clear that I didn't say reopen. I said bring online. No, I said
That's
that.
exactly what we voted for, not to open it.
It said to reopen is what Mr. Merriweather read.
That was the motion, but I amended the motion.
Right.
He amended that motion.
Pending side. But I missed that first part. But
Can we just simply vote on the motion to reopen? I understand about online, but at the end of the day, if you bring it online, you're gonna bring it open. Here's a motion on the floor.
this is what I feel like is trying to be said here in this motion, that we want the study done on the school and on the pre-K to see if we can bring to expand pre-K, but possibly at Melissa's. And I think what Mr. Johnson is asking for is for those numbers to be studied, and if it's not possible to do, that we would not even go to the county commission for funding. It is just simply a study to see if it would be feasible to open, and if it is not feasible to open, and to deal with and to do anything with Melissa's school in the future, we would make a decision about that. Is that not correct? Is that not what I think all of this really amounts to?
That's what I meant, bringing online is get the building up to speed into our maintenance plan. If we're gonna keep the building, we need to use the building.
Correct,
So-
I agree with that.
And I didn't put a timeline on it. We need to get the maintenance started based on our operational budget, and if and when we actually decide if we want pre-K there, ask for the funding from our government, from our funding body.
So, we have to vote on this motion, or we have to amend it again, or we have to table it, or we have to postpone it, or we have to do something. Are we ready to vote on this motion?
Yes, sir, the question's been called.
I think that was on the amendment.
I called for the question.
Is there a second? for calling-
I have one question.
Mr. Campbell.
Dr. Jones, I'm gonna confess, I have no idea what we're about to vote on. Do you know what we're about to vote on, and do you concur with it?
I don't concur with it.
Okay. All right.
Is this something that we can take up at the retreat? Further discussion?
We're about to vote on it.
We have a question on the floor.
Get a second, let's vote.
There's been no second. Are we ready to vote?
Yes.
We have to vote on call for the question.
We're voting on the motion.
Was there a second? Who seconded the call for the question?
No one?
No one seconded the call for the question. Oh, you seconded it? So call for the question has been seconded. All those in favor of voting on the motion?
Wait a minute.
I don't know what I'm
This is call for the
I
question.
don't even know what I'm
We're
doing.
calling, yes, calling.
So this is to stop discussion.
Okay.
And vote on the motion.
Do we take a recess? We really might need to take a break.
Did you get that? Hey, y'all need to vote.
All right.
We already did.
Well, she didn't get it, so vote
Okay,
again.
vote again.
We're voting on calling for the question.
Oh, we're voting on calling for the question.
Okay,
We're voting on calling for the question.
okay.
I thought we heard.
To vote on the actual motion.
That's right.
That's right.
Motion passed.
So,
She said, hold on. She said, hold on.
Jim said no, everybody else said yes.
I guess I know what I'm voting on.
I don't know what I'm doing.
She said no.
Now I'm ready.
Okay, we ready to vote on it.
all right, ready to vote on the motion. For Melissa's to be reopened for pre-K classes pending sign-up numbers and budget funding.
What now? Budget funding. Melissa's.
Motion failed.
Jen needs to vote.
Or abstain.
I did, I abstained.
It's
You're
abstained.
abstaining.
It's 3, 4 against, and 2
Yes, she abstained.
abstains. So the motion fails. All right. Okay, yeah, I'm fine with that. So, next on the agenda is committee reports and any necessary action. First is the Budget Committee. Mr. Johnson.
Mr. Chairman, we met on the 21st of February. Primary discussion topics was budget update. Expenditure updates were completing the following projects: community Montessori roof, Parkview Learning Center's roof, east roof, and HVAC. We talked about some of the planning for next year's budget, which included pay raises, pre-K expansion, technology and textbooks, one other issue we discussed was a policy that we wanted to, an item that we wanted the policy committee to review, and it dealt with guidelines for sponsorships. And Dr. Jones will email our chairman of the budget committee, not the budget committee, the policy committee, the current sponsorships we currently have with the school system. What we want to set up is guidelines to implement a policy on sponsorship so that when we sponsor an entity, a group, or organization, it's in line with an organization that actually does something for our school and our kids.
Any questions for Mr. Johnson? Budget report. All right, next is committee reports. Superintendent Evaluation Committee. We met on February 21st, and we agreed upon the final portion of the evaluation, which was student achievement. We will meet again on March the 19th at 10 a.m. to finalize the revisions and bring it to the board in April. That is all for the evaluation committee. Next on the agenda, does anybody have any questions concerning the evaluation committee? Okay, next on the agenda is number 9. We didn't move any items from the consent agenda. Number 10, items added to the agenda per item 2.2, which we didn't have. Item number 11, superintendent report.
One more week and spring break.
Preach.
Short and sweet.
All right. Discussion items. Auction and list of surplus items. I would say that's Mr. Washington, right?
Yes, well, we provided the list of the items that we intend to auction. There's several buses on the list, and just so you know, the useful life of a bus is 15 years, and then sometimes we can apply for extended use out to 18 years, which we have to pay additional to the state for inspections, but all these buses have exceeded that. We've cannibalized all the parts that we can from them, seats, windows, and things that we can use, and there's still people out there that like to use buses for other reasons. So these will go out for auction on the 3rd, I believe, whatever the date is of that.
Any questions, Mr. Washington, concerning that?
Yeah, Mr. Washington, where can we find a list of all those items? Is it on our website, listed anywhere?
Yes, she says it's in the e-meeting.
It's an e-meeting.
Yeah.
There's 80-something,
Yeah, so-
I'm talking about for the public,
Oh,
Okay, well, we have a flyer in which we have Henson Auction as the auctioneer, and then I can get you how he lists that on his site as far as the things that'll be in auction.
Okay.
Yes, but I just wanted to note the buses, because that's a large chunk of it, along with some other small items that aren't very useful to us anymore. But I'll get you the list, I mean, if that's your question.
next is questions unrelated to the board agenda items for superintendent. Does anyone have any questions unrelated to the?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, yes.
Okay, during the budget process, we also talked about our new endeavor of leasing some vehicles, and I wanted to bring that before the board because it is something new that we hadn't done before. Although it's not a budgetary impact, it's a new program that we hadn't explored before, and I don't know if it's necessary for the board to vote on that or not, but I just want to make the board aware that, you know, we're going to do a new endeavor as far as leasing a few vehicles to help our fleet that is very aged in maintenance, IT in particular.
Mr. Chairman, I think one of the examples that Mr. Washington gave was that he stated that to purchase a new van, it costs $57,000. With that money, they could probably lease 6 vehicles for those dollars. So
Actually, we've come to a conclusion, we can get 8 vehicles for the price that we will purchase in our capital budget, where we're gonna use to purchase vehicles. We're gonna dab our toe into leasing just to see how it affects us operationally, because we have high maintenance costs on our vehicles. And so we're gonna just endeavor into this for a year or two just to see how it would work and if it would benefit our district to lease some of our vehicle fleet versus purchasing vehicles over a period of time.
Thank you, Mr. Washington. You have anything else?
No, if we need to, a motion, I'll make the motion that we approve that.
Thank
We don't need to, I don't think we need to do it right now. We don't need, you don't need us to deal with that right now, right?
I'm just presenting the board the information. If you want to vote to say we can do it, fine, but if not, you know, it's the board's discretion.
It's already in the capital budget.
It's actually a pilot program. We starting first, right?
Yes.
Before we,
I think that it is in order that future boards and people looking back, that we did give authorization on something of that nature, because it's a pilot program.
Yeah, it's a new program for us.
If it doesn't work and it comes back to the board, we really won't have any reason to bring it back, because we've given it to them. And so I think your motion is in order, and if you were making a motion, I'd like to second.
that's a formal motion. I make a motion that we allow the pilot program with the leasing the vehicles.
I second the motion.
Motion made by Mr. Johnson, seconded by Mr. Merriweather. All in favor, well, vote yes, I guess. Opposed, no. Well, any discussion?
No, well,
Okay.
I think we all voted.
Well, I guess my only other question, are you bringing that for a time period? I mean, have we got a time period on it?
In this budget year, we have the money to do it, and once we get this okay, we're gonna start the process. We already have the vehicles outlined that we want. We got the figures in line, and as soon as you, I just want to make the board aware of it, and we're gonna execute the plan.
Okay, just for clarification purpose, you also are saying that you want to come back and bring figures whether that was possible for us to do it that way or not?
Well, over a couple of years' time, we'll see operationally, is it more feasible for us to do that versus purchasing
Okay, well,
vehicles? So
can
this is
we
our
add
first
3
pilot.
years to that? Would that be in order with you?
That's fine if you want to put
Can
3
you
years
add
out
3 years
there.
at motion, so we'll have a timetable on it?
That's fine. Yeah, it's a 5-year lease program.
5 years, would you do
It's a
that?
5-year lease program.
Would you add?
I'll add to my motion, 5-year plan.
Okay, that's, I'll second that.
So he added 5 years to his motion.
All right.
And it was already seconded, and
Okay,
now we're
ready
voting.
to vote?
Y'all are confusing me with y'all.
Hey, y'all don't need to clear your votes till she gets them.
Oh, she didn't see it.
It was
It
unanimous.
was unanimous, right? It was
Yes.
Okay. All right, moving on. Suggested agenda, April agenda items, please submit to myself, Dr. Jones, or Janet, by March 28th. Legislative contact report made during the month of March, submit to Mrs. Stack. Informational items for the board, the annual calendar, the board academies, the board expenses. Next on thing is the consent agenda, which we've already voted on. It looks like we are at time to adjourn. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Second.
Second. I didn't, motion made by Janice,
Second.
second by AJ. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.